Ladies and gentlemen, according to Joe Cowley, the Chicago Bulls are working to mend their relationship with Zach Lavine. And a few days ago, we found out that the Chicago Bulls are adding more competition to their training camp roster. Y'all know we're going to talk about it and break it all down, but you got to hear the music first.
Cognac, gang.
Shy Boys Podcast with the Cognac Boys. I'm Cognac Boy Bobby, and I'm holding it down on today's daily episode. If you tuned in with me today, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell as well. Ladies and gentlemen, the Chicago Bulls appear to be trying to mend their relationship with Zach Lavine, according to Joe Cowley. I agree this is the way that the Chicago Bulls should be operating, at least for the short term, if not the long term, depending on what the goals are as the organization when it comes down to Zach Lavine. Now, we heard that the reports came out earlier this summer that Billy Donovan went around doing his normal stops to his players, checking in with them, making sure that they're okay, checking in, just doing what most coaches should be doing, checking in on your players, regardless if you still want them on the team. They requested a trade. You still do your due diligence just to make sure things are, good if said player is still going to be on this roster. Zach Lavine appears that he's still going to be on this roster, and shout out to Billy Donovan for at least taking, the time out to go in and check on his young player. Now, it was being reported that during this time that Billy Donovan checked on Zach Lavine, they were able to mend a bridge. We don't know how broken the bridge was. We don't know how well put together the bridge is now. But we do know there has been some type of effort from head coach Billy Donovan to try to work on the relationship with Zach Lavine. And I say, good job to Billy Donovan, but you guys still got more work to do. And it's not just on Billy Donovan, it's also on Zach Lavine himself and the front office to determine where they want to go with this. Where do they really want to go with this? Because if we're talking about right now as the Chicago Bulls headed into the 2024-2025 season, the Chicago Bulls flat out are better with Zach Lavine on his team. Now they can go out there and try to execute a said trade. Could the trade potentially make the Chicago Bulls better? Possibly, depending on what you get back for it. But as of right now, if the return is not going to equate to a player like Zach Lavine for the short term, at least for this particular season, it could be that the Chicago Bulls will look worse. But we know that Zach Lavine is going to be on this team. So as of right now, he makes the team better. How much better? That's still to be determined. A lot of people have the Chicago Bulls winning about 30 to 35 games. Some people are believing that the Chicago Bulls can exceed that win total. But with all the thoughts, with all the predictions, nothing really matters until they put it all on wax. That's what it really comes down to. And when I say that the front office needs to get themselves involved in trying to mend this relationship, I believe that they really need to get involved with trying to mend this relationship. I don't know where the relationship went wrong. I have an idea, and that idea of when the relationship between Zach Lavine and the front office, I believe that relationship kind of went sideways the moment Billy Donovan benched Zach Lavine. And then the following game, DeMar DeRozan was equally bad, or if not worse, than Zach Lavine in the game that he got benched. And there is no repercussions. There was no consequences pointed to DeMar DeRozan like it was in favor of Zach Lavine. And from that moment, I told C-Dub and I told some of the fans around Bulls Nation, that move told me Billy Donovan doesn't respect Zach Lavine, not entirely, but not to the same level that he respected DeMar DeRozan. Y'all think it was just a coincidence? We can point to many of the fourth quarter moments throughout this tenure with Zach Lavine having DeMar DeRozan on the team. No plays being drawn up for Zach Lavine to try to close out the game. No plays being drawn up for a last second shot for Zach Lavine. Even when those moments did come, they came very seldom. And in those moments, Zach Lavine didn't particularly execute or perform well. But I will argue, how do you expect somebody to perform well in the clutch if you don't give them opportunities to do so at a higher rate than what was given to Zach Lavine? So that aspect of it, the mistreatment of Zach Lavine and acting as if he wasn't a all-star for the Chicago Bulls, he wasn't a 24 plus point per game scorer, as if he wasn't still one of the valuable members on the Chicago Bulls. Those two sides have to get it down packed. We know that Zach Lavine requested a trade, but if you look around Zach Lavine, this team looks a little bit more favorable to where I believe Zach Lavine will exceed a little bit more because of the play style. The play style with DeMar DeRozan, you know what I'm saying, along with Lonzo Ball, was something that appeared that it can work. But once Lonzo Ball was subtracted from that lineup, it was shaky. The Bulls ranked towards the bottom in offense with those two guys on the court for the entirety of the season. It wasn't really good. They won basketball games, but they did not necessarily live up to those expectations. So both sides need to come in and say, hey, Zach Lavine, look, we got a young squad right here around. We got Josh Giddey, another point guard who should be able to provide some things that Lonzo Ball was able to provide you with. Lonzo Ball is expected to return. He can still provide you some of those opportunities in limited minutes, depending on how we set up our rotations. Something like that could potentially change the mindset of Zach Lavine. I believe Zach Lavine going into this training camp and headed into this season doesn't have a choice but to buy in. I really believe that. You already have others around the league not believing in your abilities and not believing that you are good enough to bring something to whatever team that may be. I disagree with a lot of it, but that's what the market is saying right now. So Zach Lavine doesn't have a choice. And if the front office want to move Zach Lavine, but move him with good favor, they at least have to mend this relationship for the sake of saying, hey, if we can mend this with Zach Lavine, make sure we clean up some of the stupid things that were surrounding this team and surrounding this situation. Get rid of that, fix it, make it and package it up to where it's a little bit better than what was out there previously. And who knows, the temperature around the league when it comes to the Chicago Bulls might change, because as of right now, players are looking at what the Chicago Bulls are doing. And players talking, there's going to be things said, what I'm saying, that we don't necessarily hear within the media outlets that sometimes can affect a team ability to bring on free agents. Hence why, if we talking about a different sport, we looking at the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears have been very successful with bringing on free agent talent compared to the Chicago Bulls, simply because of the perception of the players in their respective leagues and how they view each team. So the Chicago Bulls, they have to buy in. Zach Lavine, he has to buy in. Regardless if this is something for the short term or if this is something for the long term, both sides have to work together to reach their ultimate goal, whatever that may be. Because as of right now, Zach Lavine and his contract, he's tied to the Chicago Bulls until 2028. The only way Zach Lavine does not remain here until 2028 is if, one, the year prior, he opts out with this player option, or he simply gets traded. But as of right now, those situations are difficult because he still has the years on the contract. A lot of people believe that the money is not matching what the player can give him. And then you think about, what can they do? What can they possibly do right now? But for the short term, it's something you could probably balance with it. For the long term, I don't know. The long-term effect of Zach Lavine being around is a bit bleak. But in a short term, maybe for 41 games or maybe even for the rest of the season, he could be a valuable piece for your squad to help kind of bridge that gap and help that transition on to the Kobe White era, the Iodo Subu era, the Patrick Williams era, the Montes Buzelis era. You know what I mean? Just to bridge that gap. So that's what that really comes down to. I say, hey, it's not bad to try to mend a relationship, but I believe all sides have to be in and buy in at 100%. Let me know your comments on that situation down below. Before we get out of here, I want to talk about the Chicago Bulls bringing in EJ Liddell to add more competition to the training camp roster. The Chicago Bulls, last time that they made a move, they picked up Taylor Horton Tucker. I said it was a bit confusing. It was. I mean, I kind of understood it from the aspect of saying, hey, we're going to bring in some more talent. We're going to see what these guys can give us, and we're going to maneuver and make weight. My argument was, cool. I'm not mad at you trying to figure out more guard depth, but where's the investment in the front court? The Chicago Bulls say, I bet. Hold my drink. Here it is. We're going to see, and we're going to bring in EJ Liddell. I'm not necessarily mad at it. I don't know what is going to happen with EJ Liddell. I do know that in 2022, he was a second-round pick. I believe at one point, me and C-Dub, we chopped it up, broke down this prospect, and believed that he was going to be able to bring something to the Chicago Bulls if he was selected at said time. They did not select him. He went on to another team, tore his ACL in Summer League. And then when he returned, he was all right. I understand the return to the G League is something that doesn't sound sexy. It doesn't sound beautiful to the ears of NBA fans, but player development is key. And sometimes it don't work out. But then there are times that things do work out. In 26 games for the G League, EJ Liddell gave his respected team 18 points, 8 rebounds. If we rounded those numbers by playing, and he did so with only playing 26 minutes per game, and he shot 50% from the field. Not bad. There is some bad. He's not a very good three-point shooter, only 27%. And, that's something you will have to work with. But is that the sole purpose of bringing this fella on your squad? I don't know. Maybe is this somebody that using a small ball lineup like Billy Donovan likes to trot out there? Maybe. I don't know. But I'm not mad at adding more competition to the training camp roster. I want to see the Chicago Bulls heavily invested in trying to develop and move this thing forward. So I'm all for it. Bring these guys in here, see what they can give you. Me personally, if we're talking about EJ Liddell, Taylor Horton Tucker, or Kenny Lofton Jr., my money is on Kenny Lofton Jr. I believe he has a lot of size on him, maybe not vertically, but a lot in width, you know what I'm saying, and body size. And I believe he's a decent player. I believe he has some skill that you can probably utilize if you are the Chicago Bulls, but it's going to be up to what the Chicago Bulls want. That's what it's going to come down to. It's going to come down to what the Chicago Bulls want. You know what I'm saying? Because we've seen plenty of times that the Chicago Bulls have players come through, kind of hoop a little bit, and then they go on to other teams because the Chicago Bulls just let them go. So they can very well hold on to one of these guys, or they can very well let them all go. We shall see what happens as we inch closer and closer to training camp. But ultimately, I'm just happy that the Chicago Bulls are bringing in more competition. Make these guys earn their spot. There will be some guys who ain't going to move, but there are some guys that need to step up and prove that they are ready to be a part of this youth movement. Because it's not just going to come down to wins. It's going to come down to how well these guys are executed. Can they be good IQ basketball players? Can they perform in those limited minutes that they're going to receive? Can they be somebody that you can depend on when things get tough, or you need a change of pace, or you need to provide or you need a added spark in a particular game? Can a guy come out and just give you, you know what I'm saying, a couple minutes and just be just as effective as if he was playing 20, 30 minutes? Who knows? We got to figure it all out. Hopefully they figure it all out. They've been invested in this player development department. So we shall see what happens with that. But that is it for me today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell as well. If you want to be a part of one of our mailbag episodes, call in, state your name, leave your take. The number to do so is 773-242-9219. Thank y'all so much. Make sure you always see red, and you already know I'm going to catch y'all on the next one for sure.
Cognac. Gang.